Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 19th, 2022, on 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about this afternoon, including Hurricane Fiona raking portions of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, who's next in line, and a potential next storm that's going to be developing in the Caribbean over the next several days. So let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, our main focal point right now is Hurricane Fiona, now finally pulling away from Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. And then we have this other dead tropical wave right now, not really doing a whole lot, but once this moves into the Caribbean, conditions look ripe for additional development, and some latest model trends are pretty concerning, so we'll look at that here in a second. If we take a look here at Hurricane Fiona this afternoon, we noticed that the storm, after taking an unexpected south and west jog last evening after making landfall in extreme southwestern Puerto Rico, made landfall this morning in the southern portion of Hispaniola and has now crossed over the island and is now moving back over water at this point. We notice that the center of circulation at this point, according to visible satellite, is located off the tip of this island here, and this is going to be continuing to move towards the north and west over the next couple of days. Now we notice here this is the island chain here of the Turks and Caicos in southeastern Bahamas. This will be moving pretty close to that area within the next about 24 hours, and hurricane conditions are possible. But look at the San Juan, Puerto Rico radar. We're still dealing with some very significant rainfall occurring for portions of central Puerto Rico today. We notice that there's still this training band overall that has been setting up and has not really been letting up over the past couple of hours. And so rainfall amounts here could be quite high. And we notice that here's the core of Fiona right now. We notice that deep convection rotating around the circulation this afternoon. So this indicates once again that the storm is now entering its or is ready to intensify once again within the next about 6 to 12 hours after this moves away from Hispaniola. Now the track forecast over the next several days, we notice that again this is expected to quickly intensify into a Category 2 hurricane, and then likely become our first major hurricane sometime on Wednesday after moving through portions of the Turks and Caicos and moving towards the northeast. Now, eventually, this will be kind of arriving on its next destination, which is potentially Bermuda, within a couple of days. This is by 8 a.m. Friday, and the storm is still expected to be to the north and west of the Bermuda at this point. However, again, there is still the threat that we could see direct hurricane impacts to Bermuda, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, again, taking a look at the watch warning map today, again, first of all, the hurricane warning for Puerto Rico has been canceled. The remainder of the warnings for portions of the Leeward Islands have also been canceled. We are now left with a tropical storm warning for the USVI and Puerto Rico. We have a hurricane warning that remains in effect for portions of eastern Hispaniola that will be canceled soon. And then we have that tropical storm warning remaining in effect for northern Hispaniola, and this tropical storm watch will also be canceled. We do have a hurricane warning that is now in effect for portions of the Turks and Caicos here, and a tropical storm warning further towards the north of that. Now, if we look here at the tropical cyclone risk impact, again, there is still a high threat of impacts to portions of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico today, mainly that flooding threat, which is going to remain a significant concern for several days yet to come, especially for the island of Puerto Rico, which was slammed with rain and is still not over yet. And so we could still see an additional 5 to 6 inches of rain in spots across central and western portions of Puerto Rico, with diminishing amounts towards the east. And then even for the island here of Hispaniola in the Dominican Republic, there is still the opportunity from anywhere between 2 to 5 inches of rainfall, especially right where this core is tracking. Although, again, these rainfall totals will be coming down as of the new update this evening because, of course, Fiona is now beginning to pull away. And then for the Turks and Caicos here, upwards of 1.25 to about 3 inches of rain is possible depending on the exact track that Fiona decides to take. So right now the conservative approach of about 1.25 to 1.5 inches of rain is certainly the best bet, it seems like to me at this point. Now, how strong is this system expected to get? Well, look at the H-Wharf upper level environment here. This is the 60 run here, valid for 2 p.m. this afternoon. We notice that the storm is again north here, and this is now moving towards the northwest and away from land. Now, on the HWAR forecast, this has the pressure at about 975 millibars. We'll see what is analyzed by Recon later this afternoon. Officially, it's about 980, so this might be still a little too low. But irregardless, the pattern remains the same. We have this trough over Florida that is going to be creating a little bit of vertical shear over top of the system during the next several days. A little bit, not a lot, and certainly nothing to hinder significant development, combined with warm sea surface temperatures, deep upper ocean heat content, and significant moisture. That's going to allow our storm to intensify very significantly here by Wednesday into Thursday. We can see here on the HWARF, this is suggesting a mid-range, kind of a mid-range Category 4 hurricane at this particular point based on the pressures. Now we notice that here's this trough again cutting through Florida and now into the Southwest Atlantic. So this is, yes, going to create a little bit of shear, but is likely not to be super detrimental to our system. And then this passes very close, more than likely at a little bit to the northeast of Bermuda at this point. However, because the center may not make landfall, if we actually look at the wind field at this particular point, we notice that the wind field is going to be expanding, and this is the island of Bermuda right here. That's the island of Bermuda, and this is by 5 a.m. Friday. We have what could be a pretty strong Category 4 hurricane moving towards the northwest. Now, again, the center of circulation is more than 50 miles offshore, but because this is a very big system at this particular point, the hurricane force wind field really extends out. We'll measure it here. Extends out about 80 miles from the center towards the east and about 60 miles off towards the west. And because that Bermuda would be on the eastern side of this, unlike Earl, where it was on the western side, this is going to bring significant impacts to the island of Bermuda. And in fact, if we look at the simulated radar here, we notice that, again, deep convective bands kind of getting in that eye wall here. I mean, this would be a massive eye structure at this point, but we can look at that simulated, satellite here, and we just notice it. I mean, it's a very deep storm at this point. The HMOD forecast, again, we'll go back to the 60 run here, is calling for much of the same, maybe even a little bit closer with the center of circulation here, bringing that onshore flow and bringing with it the potential for some very significant heavy rainfall at this particular point in time. So it looks like that all indications are that there will be some type of hurricane impact to the island of Bermuda within a couple of days. And so interest there certainly should be continuing to monitor the progress of the system. Now, if we look here on these super ensemble blends, we notice that, again, we're looking at the 0Z runs. Now, most notably, most of the model runs overnight and into today have slowly but surely faded away the option that this turns or tries to turn any bit westward. And last night we were kind of unsure because of how far south and west it was moving, but today, given this northward motion and now given the fact this is back over open water, this will likely continue to move towards the north-northwest and eventually bend towards the northeast, getting it very close to the island of Bermuda, which is right here. So getting it very close to the island of Bermuda within just a couple of days, and even some members have a direct landfall. But again, it is important to remember that even if the storm is towards the northwest here, significant impacts are likely. Now, beyond the island of Bermuda, we are also watching for potential impacts to portions of Atlantic Canada. The official forecast does bring this pretty close and even over portions of Atlantic Canada at this point. And notice that the forecast track, most of the ensemble members take a bend back towards the left here as it interacts with an upper level low over New England. And this is likely to bring substantial impacts to Newfoundland and portions of Atlantic Canada within about 5 days or so. So again, there's very significant potential for impacts to Atlantic Canada here, and it is important to continue to monitor the progress of this system. Even if this is not a true hurricane at this point, there will likely still be significant impacts as it will be moving very fast and it will not have time to completely deplete that wind field as it's moving very quickly. So certainly keep in mind to the forecast there. Now, in the rest of the tropics, we are also monitoring another system today. Of course, we were just talking about this. It's this tropical wave right now that is northeast of South America at this particular point. This will be moving westward over the next couple of days, where some impacts are possible, especially to portions of Trinidad, Tobago, and portions of the Lesser Antilles at this point. Now, this is not expected to develop very quickly, but once it gets into the central Caribbean, things could start to change. Now, if we look at the GFS forecast, this is the 12Z run valid for 54 hours from now, so this is by 2 p.m. Wednesday. Now, on this particular run of the GFS, we do have a storm that tries to develop very quickly here in the model forecast and does move into the islands as a tropical depression or storm. Now, either way, I'm not necessarily buying that quick of development, given that we haven't seen any significant organizational trends during the today, really. However, once it gets into this region, activity and development is certainly possible. If we actually look at what the upper level wind field is expected to be on the GFS, we notice that a pretty favorable wind environment is forecast, and we can actually look at the GFS ensembles to kind of get a better feel of that, and apparently we don't have that, so we're not going to get that. Anyway, though, continuing on, we notice that, again, we still do have a pretty favorable environment for intensification in this area right here, and so we'll have to monitor the trends on that over the next couple of days. Certainly, if we look at the EPS here and we look at the ensemble mean sea level pressure, the European is picking up on this system too and has a fairly decent signature here for a storm potentially south of Jamaica within just about 5 to 6 days. So I would not be surprised to see the Hurricane Center tag this at 2 or at 8 p.m. this evening. All right. So we've got a lot to watch over the next couple of days. Right now, I'm not really focused on any significant concerns for the Leeward Islands and Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, Barbados. Not really expecting any significant impacts, but some heavy rainfall, gusty winds certainly possible as that tropical wave moves through. Then, of course, we'll be watching for potential impacts to Atlantic Canada from Hurricane Fiona. All right. So that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some later this evening.